So let's begin with the CV workshop. So in this section, we're going to talk about the key things to remember when you are writing up your CV, what to leave in, and in what order, but most importantly, what to leave out. And then there'll be some time where we can talk about your CV and we can show examples and things like that if you want to actually work on yours in this session. So the key things to remember with your CV. The most important thing is relevance, and it's not relevance to you, it's relevance to the job and the employer that you're trying to gain the attention of. So the quality of your experience and your education, it outweighs the quantity. So less is more, and relevance is the most important thing to remember. The other thing to remember is that you will be, when you're going, say, even when you're like putting your CV out for an informal opportunity, but even when you're, more so when you're actually applying officially for a role that's been advertised, you will be competing with many, many people. And because of this, the recruiter and the employer are looking at ways they can cut people out of the race. Now, if you have poor spelling, grammar, and punctuation, that will be the first thing that will cut you out. So you need to pay very, very close attention to the words that you use and how you present them in your CV. It is a good idea to get someone else to read it and proofread it to make sure there is nothing misspelled in there. Some people have missed out on jobs because, you know, they've really left the spelling and grammar as an afterthought, or they've misspelled in the opening letter the actual organization's name that they're going for a job at. It's simple things like that that will cut you out, and it really does matter, particularly in the field if you're trying to work in social media, communication, marketing, public relations, any of those sort of roles where you are a professional communicator. You can imagine the importance of spelling, grammar, and punctuation in any role that you take on in those sorts of fields. So please be very careful with that. It's important that you customize your CV for each position. The worst thing that you can is have the same CV and send it out to multiple places and multiple jobs without actually customizing it to the criteria of what each job is asking for, because that's what the recruiter will be judging you on, is what the key selection criteria. So if yours doesn't, they're looking for a match. If yours doesn't match, or it takes that long for them to find the elements that are most important to find that match, you won't be successful. So you need to make it very easy for a prospective employer to see quickly, because you don't have, imagine they've got hundreds of applications. They need to see straight up that you have what they're looking for. And so you need to put this stuff, I'll talk about the position of how you present yourself on your CV in a second. You need to make it easy to see. So you can't just stick with the same one all the time. You need to, and often it's similar information, but you need to rework it so it meets the needs of each job application. The other important thing is to show, not tell. Don't tell people that I am this, I am that. You need to show people with your experience that that's what has happened, with your achievements, that's what you are. People can say anything on a CV. You could tell them anything, and it doesn't really matter that much. They're looking for evidence. So you need to provide evidence with every claim that you make about yourself. You need to provide evidence. It's like when you're writing an essay or any sort of assignment at university, any claim, you need to support it with a reference. And with this, not a reference, but you need to provide an example from your work, your employment, your study, anything like that, that can support the claim that you're making about yourself. And Finally, on this one, no more than 2 pages, because they won't read it. They seriously won't read it. And you need to put the most important information on that first page, because they're going through hundreds. And, another tip as well is when you are, say most applications are now online, a lot of organizations now use keyword sort of AI software to check that the keywords from the criteria are in your CV. So make sure that you're using similar terminology to what they are in your CV, so then they'll find it. It's almost like when we talk about in social media about search engine optimization. It's a very similar thing. They want to see that you're a match. So make sure that you try and weave in some of the same wording and keywords that they're using in that selection criteria. Now, what to leave out? Now, this is often a discussion and can be sometimes a heated discussion, because it sometimes goes against everything that you have been taught. But let me tell you and explain to you why this is why it is, and why I believe this, and why it's actually worked for me and other students. Your career objective and your personal summary. Often you're just wasting that. You've only got 2 pages. You're often wasting that space by putting that in there. Your career objective is clearly to get the job that you're going for. And most of the time, employers don't even read that. Your personal summary, again, has things like, I am this, I am that, without any evidence in there. So it's better to leave that out and let your experience and the way that, and I'll show you how to do it, the way you structure your CV, show all of this stuff. It's just a waste of words and a waste of space by including that. Your date of birth. In Australia, it is illegal for any employer to ask you about your date of birth, also about your marital status, and if you have children, your nationality. It is illegal for them to ask you any of this information. So please, you don't need to provide that on your CV. Also, your photo. Now, look, in some cultures, it is customary and to include a photo, but please be aware that a photo can work for you or against you. So there are some employers are biased, and they will sometimes look and judge you on your appearance before looking at your experience. So it's up to you if you want to take that risk. And the chances are, if they really want to see what you look like, they will Google you. So, and they will Google you anyway if you get further into the process. So it's up to you if you do that, but I recommend not including a photo, because really you want your experience and your knowledge and your education to speak for you. You don't want to be judged on your appearance, except if it's something for, say, you're going for an acting role or something like that. Then of course it is, and I think the acting industry is the only industry that's allowed to judge on appearance. So just be aware that there are unconscious bias, but also very conscious bias out there with employers. So it's up to you whether you want to take that risk. And the thing is, you don't know which way it's going to go. So the other thing is hobbies. Look, unless these are actually relevant, we'll get back to relevance. Unless you have a hobby that is relevant to the job you're going for, I wouldn't include it. So, for example, if you're going for a job as a content creator and you like to play netball, unless you're going for a job as a content curator at the Australian Netball Institute, there's no point telling them that you play netball. Like, it doesn't matter, So you're using up that space. If though you're going for a job as a content creator and you have a real passion for digital photography, absolutely include that, because that's another skill that aligns with what you're going for. But anything else, just make sure it's actually relevant. Otherwise, ditch it. Short-term unrelated work. So I once helped someone with their CV, and they helped to film a play that was taking place, and they did that for an hour and they wanted to put that on their CV. And it was like, well, it's not really a great example of your work history, and it wasn't related to the job they were going for. So really short-term jobs that have nothing to do with what the job you're going for, please don't include them. Again, it's quality over quantity. And unfinished courses, don't put that on there, because that actually doesn't look great for you. So I was helping someone with their CV, and they had started degrees at, I think, 2 or 3 different universities before coming to USC. And, you know, sometimes it takes a while to find your feet and work out where you want to be, but they hadn't completed any of those. So it was like first year here, first year, and it's better to only include the things that you have finished or that you're currently undertaking, not the things that you decided not to do after you've made some progress in, because it doesn't actually count so much. People want to see the things that you've finished or that you're currently doing. What to include and what order. So remember to include first up your personal details, as in your name, your phone number, email address, and LinkedIn profile address. And if you have a website or a blog or something like that that will work in your favor, include this here as the first step, because you want people to be able to find you and contact you straight away if they're interested in learning more about you and meeting you. Next is your education. And you need to put it goes from most recent backwards. So here's an example: Bachelor of Communication Social Media. So if you're currently undertaking that, you say you started in 2019 to current, because you're still doing it, where you did it, and then a sentence detailing the courses that relate to the job that you're going for. So again, if you're going for that content creator job, you could say that you have undertaken courses as part of this degree in marketing, PR, advertising, content curation and creation, and other social media courses where you've been blogging and vlogging, you know. So that really, if you started at the beginning of 2019, that sentence encompasses everything that you would have done so far that applies to that role in just a nice sentence. Then relevant work experience. See how I stipulate the word relevant. So now this section can include paid and unpaid relevant work experience. So for example, if you're going for that content creator job and you did some work experience, you can include that here. And again, it's most recent, then backwards. So for example here, so from February to June, did Breeze Botanicals work experience, and that you help them with strategy and content development, and list 3 achievements, like one to 3 that you achieved during that time. It's really important to include achievements to really spell out what you're trying to show them are evidence of your impact. So you want to show them the difference, the improvement, enhancements, what you have made during that time that you were there. So, and there will always be something, but you've got to really pull that out and make that evident. So for example, it might be that you helped on a particular campaign, and then you could actually provide a link to one of the pieces of content from that campaign. So think about that. So you can put paid and unpaid there. And I forgot to mention in the education part as well. So remember, particularly in the social media courses where you're working with real clients, make sure you mention that as well, because that is a huge draw card for employers. They want to see that you have that actual practical experience. There are often some roles that say at least 2 years work experience. And I know sometimes that puts people off, but what you can say is that rather than saying I've had this much work experience, you could say part of your courses you've been working with real clients, so you could say I have developed social media strategies for, and talk about the name of the client that you had in the course, to actually show that you've had that practical experience. Other work experience, so you go personal details, education, relevant work experience, and then other work experience. And so, as I say here, if in doubt, leave it out. And again, most recent first. So many of you already are working, have other jobs at the moment, and it depends on what what job you're going for. But if you're going to include the jobs that you're doing now, you must somehow align what you're doing, or pull out the skills that you have gained and experience that you've gained in that role to align with the job that you're going for. So here's an example. Just say you work at KFC and your front desk, customer service front counter. If you're going for a role, say that where you will be managed like a social media manager, and you're dealing with, you have to interact with the public through the channels, you need to then, if you're going to include this, pull out something that is relevant. So leave out things like you set up the till, you set up this, those sort of operational things that you do as part of that job. Leave those out. Focus more on things like customer service, because that is exactly what you're going to need in that role. So talk about customer service. If you've won a customer service award, that could be listed as an achievement. So things like that, where you're actually aligning your skills with what they're going for. If you have a job that you really can't pull anything out of, it's probably better not to include it. But I can guarantee you, in most jobs, you will find skills that you use in that job that will be able to align with the job that you're going for. You just have to make that really clear. Another thing to remember is professional memberships. So if you're not, these aren't necessary, but if you have them, they're actually really great. And I recommend being part of a professional association, particularly as you get closer to graduation, because the other members are pretty much prospective employers. So it's really good to be part of a group. Not only can they provide you with support and assistance and advice, often a lot of jobs actually come out of your connections that you make in these groups. So there's the International Association of Business Communication, Business Communicators, and there's the Social Media Marketing Institute, and for public relations, there's the Public Relations Institute of Australia. So, and they all have student memberships as well. So if you're going to do that, include those next. Another good thing to include is community engagement, because employers love seeing people and employing people who care about their community and have done some volunteering. It just really shows the depth of that person, that they're community minded. So if you do any sort of volunteering, please include it here in terms of community engagement. If you do volunteering that aligns directly with the job that you're going for, put that up in the relevant work experience, because it don't make them like look for it. Like if you, for example, are doing helping a nonprofit with their social media and you're volunteering and doing that, that goes up in relevant work experience rather than down here. The next thing is if you're having anything published. So if, for example, you like you have a blog and you're quite active with your blog and putting things out, you can always link those through as examples of your work, because if you're going for a social media role, you will be asked for examples of your work. So it's a good idea to show that you are actually producing content. References are key because anymore people, the recruiters seem to be suspicious of anymore. So I'm just passing on what I've heard. So 3 relevant references. The other thing to remember, as I said, make sure your references know that they're going to be referees for you, because I've been caught on the back foot before where I've received a call saying, oh, can you please give a reference for, and it was a former student. I didn't even know. I didn't know the job they were going for. So you can imagine how great a referee I was in that situation. So if you're going to put people down as references, let them ask them first, ask them. And then when you're going for a job, let them know that you're going for this particular job. You may get a call, and tell them about the job, because that will help prepare them to be able to go, okay, from my experience teaching you or working with you, I can pull out my memories of those sorts of skills that you will need in this particular role. So, and then they will give you a much better reference as well. So, because if someone's happy to be a referee for you, they want to do a good job. So set them up for success and set yourself up for success by giving them notice before time. The other thing to remember is that if written references aren't used so much anymore, but if you have them, they must be on official letterhead and they must have a signature. Otherwise, it just looks really bogus, because anyone can write anything. So you need to make sure that they are actually from the company and that they've signed off on it. Just a random email, it doesn't really show much. And if the recruiter's really interested in you, they're going to call that person anyway. So make sure that they look like that. When you're writing up a reference, make sure that you include the person's name, their position, and their organisation, email and phone number, just so it's got everything there. If they don't want to give a phone number, at least include an email to be reached on. Now, I know it's very hard when you're getting out and starting your career for the first time, getting relevant references. So I'm happy to be anybody's referee. If I've taught you in my courses, I'm more than happy to be a referee for you. That's why I put my details down there. So please feel free to use me, but let me know before if you're going for an interview or something like that. So then I'm ready, and I can actually give you a really good reference, because I want to help you rather than give you sort of a off the cuff sort of reference that I don't know what's going on. So I can speak well on many topics, but I can do a better job when I have some preparation. And I just wanted to remind you too about, in terms of education on your CV, going right back to when we talked about it earlier, things like, again, it's all about relevance. So if you've done a course where, say you've done your responsible service of alcohol and you're going for a content creation job, it's not really relevant. However, if you've done your responsible service of alcohol and you are going for an event management role, perfect. So think about, as I said, it's quality over quantity, and only include the stuff that is going to be relevant to that role.